Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to 2022. It's me, your friendly Gayborhood host. Somehow I did not end up blowing my brains out in 2021. So here we are out in the woods, or really out in the city, because if you keep up with my socials, you know that I moved out into the city officially in the month of December. I'm out here in good old Jackson, Mississippi. And I'm no longer out in the woods, but I'm not changing the title of this goddamn podcast because I've gotten 3 seasons under my belt. There's no reason for me to change it. But yeah, I'm back to my interview format. If you haven't already, go back and listen to Enter the Mind Book 2, because I worked really fucking hard on that. But anyway, yeah, welcome back to interview format. And speaking of podcasts and working really hard, I actually have a fellow podcaster here with me today. Um, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Why, thank you. First of all, congrats again on the 3 seasons. I know how difficult it is to manage one. So yeah, congrats on all your hard work. Bullet pointing, I am Ryan Casarez. I am 29 years old, and I am a podcaster and bookstagrammer in Lake Dallas, Texas. It's about 30, 40 minutes north of Dallas. Originally from Fresno, California, Cali born and raised, and California girl for life, So here's the hair toss.
West Coast, Best Coast.
Exactly. Like, I don't care. I've seen Galveston. I'm sorry. It doesn't compare to California. Beach-wise, no, it doesn't. I'm sorry. But yeah, been a bookstagrammer and podcaster for a little over 3 years now. The first podcast I ran is called The Most Popular Guy in the Middle of Nowhere, because it kind of feels like that sometimes. Bit of a variety show that, I'll admit, it's kind of all over the place. We started wanting to do serious issues, social justice issues, but then we kind of also wanted to do a little bit of fun stuff and, be a little more raunchy side and give our sexcapade stories. So there's a little bit of everything for everyone there. And then the second podcast I run is the Page Master book review. Pretty much reviewing like all the top book club picks that are on the best time seller list right now, and breaking it down. So, if you want to cheat and pretend to be smart, just listen to all the bullet points and, insert them to any conversation, and people will think you read a lot.
Everybody pay attention if you're like me. You don't even have time to listen to the audiobook. Just listen to his podcast. Do it.
But day job wise, I am a quote unquote champion, a customer champion bottle service member. I work at a liquor store, so that's actually pretty chill and laid back. Is it, career wise something long term? Meh. But hey, you gotta pay the bills somehow.
Look, honey, no shame in your game in this economy, honey.
I like you. Like,
Yeah.
every time I walk in, or if I have a bad day, I'm just like, starting that OnlyFans looks pretty good right now.
Right, starting that OnlyFans, and then at least, if you have like a really bad day, you can be like, before I leave, goes like around the store and just picks up what you need, scans it.
Yeah, some days I do.
Leave. So really quick, yeah, you live in Lake Dallas. I don't know how well you keep up with the podcast, but podcast regular Zane and now their boyfriend Alex has just moved to live with them, and they live in Firewheel, which is that's in Garland.
Oh yeah. I know the general area. Yeah.
I was gonna say they also live in the Dallas metro area, so
we'll have to do a meetup sometime. But no, I listened recently to your episode with Robin McGeehee, and I actually met her. I mean, she probably doesn't remember me because this was like years ago, but I went to Fresno State, and there was a club that I was a part of, United Student Pride, and the group went from activism to more of a social club, and then kind of fell somewhere in the middle. And yeah, during like the whole Prop 8 thing, and then like right when uh before gay marriage was legalized, like like what was it, June 26, 2012, around there, like right before then, that full year, she'd come in and like get everyone to like try to go to Sacramento to go ahead and protest and march and whatnot. And so yeah, met her a few times, and like the fact that you got her on here, I was just like, yes, a legend, a living legend. I mean, well, she probably won't like the legend part, but you know what I mean. Like,
she's legendary. I mean, it's just like incredible to be in her presence, as I'm sure you know, having done it several times. I mean, she's a firecracker. She literally, she walks into a room and she changes the whole vibe. Like, she makes you feel like you can do anything. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, no, absolutely, an inspirational legend. Any of those good adjectives, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it was an honor to have her on. um yeah, since she is a Mississippi native, a lot of my fellow queers, I know I know some gays in high places around here, so they helped me find other gays in high places to potentially be on the podcast, and that really helped. So no, I was very, very honored to get to meet and talk to Robin.
Have you ever heard of Jeff Robinson?
I don't believe I have. And sorry, Jeff Robinson, if you happen to be a listener of the show, if you just
No,
if
he's
somehow
no, because I bring him up because like during my time over at Fresno State and a little before that, um I don't want to necessarily call myself an activist, because I feel like if you use that title, it carries the notion that like you're always doing something for the cause.
yeah.
And so I will say that I, during times that I volunteered with certain causes, um I definitely met like a lot of LGBT leaders within the Central Valley. And it's crazy the similarities between Fresno, Central Valley, and over here in Lake Dallas area. Very similar, rural flatland community, um, big college town, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just like so interesting how I never really noticed how conservative the Central Valley was until I fully left it. And then I was able to see like so many striking similarities between there and here. But yeah, I definitely met a lot of leaders. He was one of them, and um, he is responsible for Community Link, which was Fresno's first LGBT newspaper. That was like, I want to say he brought it up around the 80s, somewhere around there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then there was also um, Peter Robertson, who was a big alumni from Fresno State where I went to. And um, besides promoting Fresno State, he also helped bring about Real Pride, which is, I think, I want to say I could be wrong, but I want to say like either the third or fourth oldest LGBT film festival in California. And it's there are films from everywhere, but like they try to focus on what's the word,
Local.
local,
Yeah.
yeah, local producers and stuff. And it's a full week festival in the Tower District, which is like the little artsy district, if you will.
Yeah.
So I met those two as well as Robin, and then um, my recently passed friend Zoyers and Dell, who helped co-found Trans Emotion, um, ranging covering areas all the way from pretty much from the north end of the valley to the south end. And yeah, it's just like crazy, like to think of like all the what's the word, I'm drawing a blank here, all the people who like brought like so much change that like I know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's just like meeting all of them that kind of definitely like pushed me to like be out there as well and take more of a leadership role within United Student Pride while I was there. And um we actually have an annual art festival that we call Be the Change. This was like, it started like right before Prop 8 was, being debated and whatnot. And then after that, it just became a yearly thing where, any student can like go ahead and submit work, whether it's, spoken word or, sculpture or painting or whatnot. And it's also kind of like a resource fair for students on campus as well as the community. And it was like one of the highlights of being a part of that group and volunteering that way.
Okay. Well, it will be interesting kind of stacking that up to your experience in the South, which is why you are here in the first place. So Ryan, let's get back to you, honey. So, like, when did you know you were different?
So, I if
and by different, I mean gay. I was gonna say, people sometimes are like, well, I've always been like different. I'm like, no, I mean gay. Queer or queer.
I did not know how to explain or quantify my unusual attraction to the Red Power Ranger, growing up. Just like I always felt like a weird connection, and I just like thought he was just so cool that I wanted to be like him. Now I actually wanted to be with him, but it was about like 4 or 5ish or so, and then my mother likes to bring this one up too. So yeah, like many kids, I liked action figures and Barbie dolls, and this one I actually threw like the biggest temper tantrum when they would when my mom and stepdad would not get me a Little Mermaid Barbie doll. Like I I turned into like the most evil little child that you want to smack around and tell my mom to tell me to shut up. Like it was like my worst temper tantrum like ever as a kid. And that, and also I'm not sure if you remember this, but like back in the 90s or like late 90s, early 2000s, when McDonald's, they were giving away or selling the VHS tapes for the Britney Spears and NSYNC videos. Yeah, I pretty much memorized all those right there, like 5, 6 years old, just busting out that choreography whenever I hear the songs.
Can you still do it now? Can you still do it
now? Sometimes. But didn't officially come out until I think it was 14 or so, and it was kind of sort of hilarious / a little humiliating because my stepdad was like looking for something in my room. I don't know what it was. And he found a toy and he was like, what is this? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm bi. Yeah, like many
right. I did the same thing. Yeah.
So yeah, then after that, they brought out the Bible card, the "you've been rejected by girls too many times and it's easier" card, and it took them about a month or two, and then eventually they got over it. But yeah.
So the real question here is, okay, so the real question here is, how did you acquire a toy at that age? And please tell me you did not steal it from a relative.
No.
Okay.
No.
Please tell me it was not used.
No, so like I look at, well, okay, so I am about 5'11", and I want to say, well, I'm not gonna mention my weight, but bigger boy. But anyways, I looked a lot tall. I looked tall for my age. And so I went to Spencer's at my local mall, and like they didn't bat an eye. They're like, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I mean, I don't even know like if they even have to ID for I mean, I don't know if they would.
So you were having a whole big mouth moment. You were having a whole, oh, it's a dildo in the shape of Harry Potter's wand.
Pretty much.
I love Spencer's. That is fantastic. So I guess, on the note of your family, California and Texas, you kind of briefly talked about, how you moved from California to Texas. So how did that transition come about? What prompted that and why Texas?
So this is okay. This is like so much to bullet point, but I'm gonna do my best. So my grandmother, think of her. Okay, I apologize if I use any references that you're not familiar with, but so my grandmother, 5 kids. Think of her as like, oh, what's her face? What's her face? Joan Collins from Dynasty. Alexis Carrington. She's like queen of the house, if you will. She was a very, very intelligent woman when it came to finances.
Mhm.
Got to the point where she had like several houses within the Central Valley. All of her kids, when they graduated, all got cars. Not rich, but better off. Um, After her kids finally broke free from her, she had pretty much like nobody to depend on, and she came out here to live with a relative. And as to how I got over here, my parents are very Republican in the sense, and I say that in the sense that like, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Um, it's kind of like they'll provide everything they legally have to, and anything else, that's on your own. Um, they are also living in the 50s, where they think that jobs are plentiful, and you just got to go down to the grocery store and ask Mr. Wilson for a job, and he'll be like, well, I don't know, Johnny, can you be a dependable worker? Gee golly whiz, I sure can. And then you get hired on the spot. Like, they have no idea about how the filtering system with application systems work. Like, if you sometimes don't put certain words on there, or if you put too much on there, they'll just pass you off. And they didn't realize how much difficult it was, this job market, compared to when they were kids. And they viewed it as me being unwilling to work, which is totally not the case. Like, I am pounding the pavement, applying everywhere. But as a student, with classes ranging from well, for high school, I was also in cheer and had a bunch of extracurriculars. So if you're not available to work, at least a 4-hour shift, you're probably not going to get hired. And then college wise, my classes were from like 8 a.m., 11 a.m., 2 p.m. And it's the same thing. It's like, unless you can work a full 4-hour shift, you know, you're not going to get hired anywhere. Um, and then they kind of started to, I don't want to say abuse their power, but they're basically asking me for money that I just did not have as a student. And they basically said, if you don't like it here, then leave. So I did. And came out here with my grandma, partly because um, one, Texas was a new experience, like fresh, clean slate to start over. Two, she's not exactly young anymore. So she does need help around the house and whatnot. Um, and so yeah, it was a giant transition, and there's a whole lot more, but that would literally that'd be like a 3 hour episode for this, but that's the gist of it.
Heard,
Um,
heard.
but yeah, I mean, it's been the transition. It was so shocking for several reasons. Um, I begrudgingly admit that my parents are right in the sense that I didn't have as many friends as I thought I did when I moved out here. Um, I was the one making most of the efforts, reaching out to people and whatnot. Uh, and then, slowly but surely, everyone's lives moves on, and you lose contact with most people except the ones who matter. Um, and so, yeah, like that first year, it was, difficult and a little depressing. But eventually, I joined the restaurant industry. I was a server over at IHOP for almost a full year, and Oh my goodness. It's it is insane, but you do build a family there as well. So I mean, like everything, it had its highs and its lows. Uh, and like culture wise, I was shocked at just how much more welcoming everyone was than what I previously thought. I mean, I you know I've seen Mississippi Burning and a bunch of other civil rights films and whatnot, and yeah, they don't exactly portray the South too nicely sometimes, and so I was expecting KKK flags out here, and ironically enough, okay, there's this place out here called Old Alton Bridge. Um, Bullet pointing. There was an African American man who was like a successful like farmer.
Mm-hmm.
White
Mm-hmm.
people did not like that. They went ahead and lynched him, and then ever since he was lynched, the bridge that you would cross to get to his house, they say is like now haunted, and like you can like randomly see like ghost lights if you like cross the bridge at midnight, whatever. So I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking of going there for Halloween, but then somebody told me that there's legit like Klansman meetings out there in those woods, and I'm like, oh, okay, ghosts, no problem. Klansman,
Right.
eh,
Like,
maybe not. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's more subtle microaggressions mixed with the bless your heart.
yes. Yes. Well, and I was going to say, there is, no, I wouldn't say necessarily an advantage, but there is definitely still a Hispanic presence in the Dallas metro area and a lot of Texas because of its adjacency to Mexico.
Yeah.
So you still have, a population out there. Now, once again, I think that's where kind of the microaggressions come in because, like, talking about lynchings and the South being portrayed a certain way, for instance, like Mississippi, we have a very high African American population. So like, you know the assumption is like, oh my god, like they're all outwardly racist over there, why would they all live there? And it's not that. It's just that, like, first of all, the US government keeps people of color poor. And so because the
Yeah.
cost of living is so low in Mississippi, that's pretty much the only place they can afford to live. And so
Uh-huh.
because basically the times have changed, but some people haven't, instead of being outwardly racist, like you say, it's a lot of microaggressions. It's a lot of
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a perfect thing that happened. So there's a store that I got hired at. I won't say its name because legal reasons, and don't want to get. But I'll say Matthew Lillard. So think of a store that matches that name. So
okay.
so
Okay.
anyways, my first day over there, right? Um, I get this one supervisor who we'll just call Sean, and this guy, when we first opened up the doors, the store opens at 10 a.m. A vaguely Hispanic looking man, comes in, and he goes ahead and says, "You understand him, right? Go deal with him." I just look at him and I'm like,
Ooh.
did he
Ooh.
really just say that? But I'm like, you know what? This job is going to be paying me $17 an hour, and it's right before the holidays, so I'll try to stick it out. I'll see what happens. Guy just wanted to do a return, so we processed the return, and then after that, he wanted me to go ahead and do a bunch of go backs and put them back on the shelves. And I go ahead and do them, and yeah, they're not crisp and clean, but I mean, in my eyes, they look perfectly fine. He goes ahead and walks over to the display where I go ahead and finish putting the clothes up, looks at them, looks at me, back at them, back at me, goes ahead and just swipes them down. That was crap. Do it again. Okay.
Mm.
And then so I go ahead and report it to the I guess one of the managers. And she was like this wannabe Trinity from the Matrix looking woman, hair slicked back and leather jacket and whatnot. And I told her what happened. And she's like, well, I don't know what you expect me to do about it. He's difficult with all the new hires. That was the first time I've ever just like walked out of a job, like ever. And I'm like, yeah, I don't need this. And I go ahead and look on like Indeed and Glassdoor and whatnot, and yeah, that wasn't the first instance that it's happened, or at least not with that, not at least with that company. I mean, I couldn't find anything on my exact
Right.
location, but
Right.
yeah, that was a truly eye opening. Like that was like my first legit experience with racism that I can consciously remember.
Right.
And so I'm just like, wow.
God. So, like, how would you describe your overall experience living in Texas? And then how would you also describe your experience as a non-Southerner living queer in the South?
Again, overall, I mean, I've learned to appreciate the relaxed atmosphere that everyone seems, or the relaxed pace that everyone seems to be going at. I mean, even back home in my California town, like it was kind of East Coast, and so everyone's like on the go. There's always something to do. If you're not like on the grind, you're wasting time pretty much.
Right. Right.
And over here, like there's no need to rush. It's fine. Let's just take our time and enjoy. Which it's been really nice, but it's taught me how to live in the present and like not worry so much about everything that's out of my control.
Right.
There's also what's the word? There's an importance placed on like that personal connection and rapport building. I know like I've done it a lot in previous jobs, but especially out here. Um, and it's just like proven when like after staying at a company for so long and after building relationships with guests, a lot of those relationships have turned into actual friendships, or customers who come in sometimes will go out to the bar after work or something,
Yeah.
and that's something that I didn't get as much of back home in California. And then as for experience as a queer person, it's difficult because un- until I open my mouth and you hear a certain inflection sometimes, for the most part, most people just look at me and presume I'm straight. And so, until we have that interaction, I don't typically feel that I've experienced that like any level of discrimination or microaggression. Um, and so like I mean, I don't want to say I have it easy, but I have it easy in the sense that like since I'm not as more effeminate, you know, I I'm able to get by if that makes sense,
Well, yeah,
like
and let me also say, the Southern queer experience doesn't necessarily have to be a bad one. It doesn't necessarily, like, I wouldn't say that my experience being queer in the South is 100% a bad experience. It's completely different for everybody that experiences it. I guess more so, how would you describe yourself, I guess, living queer? How would you describe the community that you live in? How would you describe, how you feel living queer in the middle of, Lake Dallas, Texas?
so the thing is like out here, I mean, the next biggest town or city I guess would be Denton, which is maybe like 10-15 minutes north of me or so. uh, and honestly, I mean, I have been trying and searching out here for a community, and unfortunately what I've been met with is a lot of clickiness.
Yeah.
um it's like I don't really go down to Dallas that often. When I do, it's like for a very specific reason. If I go to the club, it's to forget about everything. Like I'm not talking to anyone. I'm just there to drink, twerk, and and then go get something to eat afterwards. And with Denton, the queer culture there, it's more, what's the word, uh I guess I want to say youth based. Like there's more going on for the youth rather than for the adults. And so yeah, it's like, unless you know someone, you're not really going to be able to find anything, and that's been like so disheartening. And I've tried a few times going up to the local college up here, UNT, and it's basically a big social hangout group, which is totally fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I feel like there could be a lot more going for the community if effort was put into outreach and coalition building. And I kind of feel bad also saying that, because I mean, I have met a few people who have taken up certain leadership positions in certain groups, but it's usually only that person and a few others doing all the work. And so it's like, when there are certain events that are held that are LGBTQ, they typically don't have a huge turnout rate. And it's just like, it's crushing. And it's like, you can only put yourself so many times out there before you get burned out, and you're just like, I can't be the one to do this anymore. Because similar to my experience in Fresno, when you're involved in those groups, you really do put your heart and soul out there. And when nobody shows up, it just kills you. But at the same time, though, I mean, it is a necessary, fight. What you're doing, for example, giving a voice to the queer people where you're at. There always has to be someone who's like willing to stay and fight. And I'm struggling with that right now, like deciding like where my priorities really lie, because I'm not going to be staying in Texas, for the rest of my life. At some point, we're going to be moving back to Fresno, mainly because it's a lot easier when you have most of your family around. Just easier that way. And plus, like I said, Cali girl, like I need to be by the ocean. I'm like ultimate dream, if like I could just like go off grid and have a little ramshack hut near the beach, and then work in a cute little cafe or something. Like, that'd be, I'd be okay with that. So
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, yeah, it has its own challenges. It has been rewarding though, in the sense that like the few connections that you do make, they are long lasting. I mean, I've met 2 new best friends out here that like, we're, I'm not gonna say Tweedledee and Tweedledum, but like if you see one of us, you're gonna see the other pretty soon. And that's something I've learned to appreciate out here. But like in terms of like also like other experience, like safety and whatnot, it was crazy. Like my very first year out here in Oakland, there were like 17 or so gay bashings, and it was like right on the tail end of Dallas Pride, which made even all the more like crazy. But I mean, again, like I don't want to say I'm always expecting the worst, but I guess I'm one of those people where it's like expect the worst, hope for the best, kind of thing. And the more that you're proven wrong, the better you feel. And yeah, I mean, I haven't had like that outward microaggression on me. So I mean, yeah, it's been overall more in that sense more positive, like that I haven't had to witness that. And I've noticed too, like while working the several jobs I've been at while out here, the younger generation, they actually do get it. Like they're a lot more, what's the word, more meticulous and more precise in communicating what it is they mean, even if they don't always have the right word for it.
Yeah.
They're able to explain what and how they're thinking and feeling, and um, even even those like you who are on the more conservative side. I was surprised actually see like, at how what's the word, compassionate
Yeah.
a lot of them were, like, because I came out here with a lot of preconceived notions and wasn't expecting that, and to see like that empathy. It was awesome, like, seeing that, okay, we are making progress as a country, and even down here in the South, it's not as terrible as everyone says it is. It's a lot more progressive than we think. It's just stigmas are everywhere, and it takes a long time to unlearn all those habits for everyone. And yeah.
How's Grinder out there?
I was waiting for that one. I was waiting for that one. Okay.
How does
My
it
very
compare to
okay. This was
Grinder in Fresno?
okay. Well, again, it was very similar, but like it was okay. So my thing is like, okay, this might be TMI, so I apologize in advance. But uh, prior to coming out here, I identified as a total top, and there was one boyfriend I had, and we switched things around, and my eyes have been opened to the other side. Anyways, though, it was so funny because like when I first came out here, like every other profile, nothing but a field of tops, and I'm just like, gotta be kidding me. If it wasn't that, um, a lot of the profiles out here are looking to party and play or get spun with Tina. They want to go skating,
No,
and I'm
no.
just like every other two profiles, and it was like honestly like soul crushing seeing like how many people are addicted to the stuff. And I knew like I know drug use is everywhere, but just like when you see every other profile posting that, it's like what I mean, I get how and why the a person would turn to that, especially being a part of a disenfranchised community out here. So I mean, I get that, but at the same time, I just like I'm afraid to like, touch any of that stuff. Like I know I have an addictive personality, so it's like I know if I tried that, ooh, I would get hooked on it so quick. And um, the bigger thing though is the amount of married men. Literally last week had a hookup, and things went well. We made spaghetti and then watched some reruns of like Locked Up and Beyond Scared Straight. Um, we did what we did in my
Very
room, and
specific.
then and then we did what we did, and then after he was getting dressed, he gets a phone call, and he answers it. Yep. Okay. Sure. I'll see you then. And I'm like, oh, who was that? Just my wife.
Camera zooms
Okay.
in slowly on your face as you realize.
Like, thank you. Like that's been my goal in life, is to be a home wrecker. Thank you for letting me check off that on my bucket list. Now, yeah, it's crazy the amount of guys who are in a relationship or what have you, and still hits you up, and it's just like, again, if they're not having some legitimate mental issue that they need therapy for,
Right.
if it's not that, if they're not hooked on something, if they're not like clingy and overly emotional, like the first time y'all meet up, and they try to pull like every classic line in the book, if it's not that, if they're the same position as you, um then they're closeted. And I don't have a problem hooking up with someone who's closeted, but when you have a whole other relationship going on, that's
So,
that's like,
Ryan,
yeah.
congratulations. You've just described Grinder everywhere.
I mean, pretty much. Like,
I mean,
like
we don't have a lot of we surprisingly we don't have. I mean, I've been hit up for some reason people see me on Grinder and they think that I sell meth. So, I've had like one or two people hit me up and be like, "You got that ice? You partying with Tina tonight?" And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? I wish that I looked that thin." No, but like
and so like I was funny too because I was like telling my coworkers about that story, and I sent them my Grinder profile. I was sent a detail. I was just like, what about this profile says I accept married men? Like, let me know where the miscommunication is, so I can
literally.
fix that. But yeah, I guess the biggest difference here on between Fresno and here is the amount of meth users. Like, on a serious note, like it's just out there. Yeah, you might hit 1 in every 10 people who use it. Out here, I want to say like at least every other person, if not every other 2 people, and it's just like ooh, like Lord, I'm just like probing and praying that like I don't hook up with someone who uses, and when they use, they recycle things. I'm like hoping and praying I never get one of those guys. Like,
Yes. I you know what? I'm gonna save that story. I'm gonna save that story for off the podcast, but I'm gonna tell you a very specific story about something in that vein that happened to me. And Zane and Alex, if you're listening, you already know this story. But yeah, I'll tell you about that later. Listeners, if you're out there, um just send me an email if you want to hear the story. I'll gladly tell it, but I'm not telling it on this podcast. I'm not ready for that yet. Um so Ryan, I didn't put this in the talking points, but I'm asking this from now on. How is your mental health?
ooh, it is okay. Well, I mean, I don't want to minimize and trivialize things, which is something I learned in therapy that I do a lot. I recently joined BetterHelp about a year ago, and been going to therapy ever since, and it has been amazing. Like, bullet pointing it, like I got to a point to where like I no longer hate my stepfather and resent him for basically doing what any father should and would do for the kids that they take care of. Um, Bullet pointing, um, when mom got with him when I was 4, for whatever reason, it felt like she was choosing him over me, which
Oh,
wasn't the case. He
yeah.
actually convinced her to pick up her responsibilities, me. And it was a rocky relationship growing up. He comes from like that old school discipline, and yeah, we just had a lot of bumps in the road, and I've gone to a point to where like I can completely understand how and why my parents did what they did, and you know they were relatively young parents, 18, 24ish, around there. So I mean, creating a family at that young age, um yeah, we got to a point to where we're at peace now. I mean, we're not gonna be best friends, but you know there is no longer like bad blood there.
Yeah.
um as for relationship wise, um I've learned to stop lowering my standards. And you hear people say, you can't be too picky. Yes, you can, and there's nothing wrong with that, because only you know what's going to make you happy. And you deserve, what, well, how can I say this? Yeah, you shouldn't settle for anything less than you think that you deserve.
Right.
uh as of right now, I'm still learning to be okay with being by myself, and that's a whole other thing. um my next goal in therapy is to really learn how to actually love myself. And this is important for me because, like, I do want to go on a weight loss journey, but I've noticed that, like, friends who've done the weight loss journey, they do it from a place of, like, self-hatred, and they'll lose the weight, but then at some point or another, they snap and then they get it all back. And it's like that never-ending cycle. And I've noticed a few people who have lost weight and kept it off, when they do take care of themselves, it's because they love themselves. And so that's where I'm trying to get, is to be able to, like, look at myself naked and not be grossed out. At the very least, and at the best, actually like what I see. So we are in a very trying phase. I mean, every day is its own little thing, but I mean, I'm no longer at the I don't want to say I'm depressed, because I feel like you have to actually get, like, diagnosed for depression or what have you. But I no longer pity myself. So I mean, we're making a lot of good progress.
So, Ryan, once again, I don't know how much you've been keeping up with the podcast, but I actually, I had weight loss surgery back, right. My first episode came out less than a week before I actually had the weight loss surgery. And, let me say, the thing is, like, first and foremost, do what you need to do. I mean, let me just say that. Do what you need to do. But also, like, don't wait until you feel like you, quote unquote, love yourself to do it. Because, like, the thing is, let me tell you something, baby. That is a process. That is a daily process that I am still going through. Even after I've lost all this weight, there are some times when I look in the mirror and I'm like, God, I've got it all together. Look at that fucking hottie. And then there are other days when I'm like, oh my God, I just look like like someone cracked open an oyster and they just spilled me out all over the floor. um so, like, the thing is, like, yeah, don't do it for other people and don't do it for other people's expectations, but also just know that, like, no matter what happens, Ryan, like, as far as weight loss surgery goes, like, just the difference in everything else, I mean, it's going to be an unexpected journey of self-discovery, of figuring out what Ryan really likes. It will give you the opportunity to be selfish, because first of all, you're going to have to go shopping for clothes. I mean, like, it'll give you that opportunity to really deep dive into the stuff that you like and figure out new things that you like, figure out old things that you don't like. It'll give you an opportunity to really to do things that you didn't get to do before. I mean, like, for instance, like, my friend really loves Universal Studios, and they were like, look, one of these days we're going to go to Universal Studios together. And that was back when I was morbidly obese. And I was like, well, I would love to, and I'm not going to be able to fit on any of the rides. You know what I mean? It was one of those things where it's like, I would love to ride Harry Potter over and over and over again. But even when I was in high school, I remember them having to, like, slam that bitch down on me and me having to, like, suck in, like, for the whole ride. And it was just, like, an uncomfortable, embarrassing experience. And, I also think that, you can love yourself at any size. I think I think that's another part of being in the gay community. No matter where you are in the gay community, no matter where you are geographically, is there is a lot of fat shaming. There's a lot of fat shaming. There's a lot of focus on being this whatever. And even beyond that, once I lost all the weight, we have so many labels. So, like, before, I could just be like, well, I'm a chub, and then people would be like, yes, you appear to be a chub, confirmed. Now, it's like, I have a beard, I'm hairy, but I'm not quite skinny enough to be an otter. I'm not quite muscular enough to be a cub or a bear. I'm not skinny enough to be a
Mhm.
twink. I'm not fat enough to be a chub. So it's just one of those things where it's like, Well, like sometimes, despite the fact that we're supposed to be so accepting and open and everything, sometimes sometimes we end up actually complicating the whole fucking process and
Oh yeah,
boxing things up and, complicating things further than they actually need to be.
Well, it's crazy that you say that, because I was having this conversation the other day with a coworker. They are basically saying that they didn't understand why we needed, so many letters in the acronym. And I was trying to explain it's about feeling seen and represented.
Yes.
And so when you just say, why can't you just say that you're the gay community? For some people, that feels like, you're completely erasing, somebody's experience.
Yes.
And it's that's a whole other psychological thing that we can go on for hours about. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. And like you said, it is a daily process, and some days are better than others. But I mean, okay, the other thing too that I want to focus on, with in regard to weight loss, like I am struggling out here to find either an adult dance class, or if I decide I want to do like a self-defense class, because I know that for me personally, I can't just go to the gym and just work out. Like I've done that so many times, without a buddy or what have you, and
Yeah.
you have fun, you make some progress, but it's like eventually it just becomes like basically a gym class you're paying for that you never go to. So I'm looking to find like something that like is motivating, like dance wise. Like back in college, I was taking like 3 dance classes, and I was tired as hell, but I had like so much fun doing, like, maybe not so you can dance status, but I mean just like full body range of motion, losing yourself in the music and the choreography, just like it was an aspect of performing, and which I loved. And out here, most of the dance classes, for like 5, 6, 7 year olds,
Yeah.
or the actual classes I want to take are down in Dallas. And I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be going down 30, 40 miles, twice a week. You know how much money that is in gas. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's not worth it. I mean, if I was in town, down there, we might be able to make something work. But no, I'm not doing that for no.
So my final question, if you could go back in time and give your childhood self any words of comfort or wisdom, what would they be?
I would say don't hold back. Be fucking extra, because at the end of the day, you are going to be the one who. Oh yeah, I lost it. I literally had it. Hang on.
No, it's okay.
But,
This is
but
what
you know what I
Audacity
mean?
is for.
At
Yeah.
the end of the day, you're gonna have to go to sleep with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the only person you're ever going to be able um, to have like accountability for. Like that too. Definitely take accountability in everything that you do, good or bad. Like you are Leslie Odom Jr. Hamilton. I am the one thing in life I can control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There you go. And don't be afraid to throw that fit if you want that aerial Barbie, God damn it. Get that aerial Barbie. Make them pay. All right. Well, Ryan, it has been so fantastic having you out here. Um, so before we go, are there any shout outs, promos, or philanthropic opportunities that you would like to go over?
Not at the moment, but I will say though, be prepared for Pride Month. That is when I am aiming to release what I call the In the Vaults episodes of both podcasts. That is our ETA of re-releasing and restarting both podcasts.
I was gonna say before we go, do you want to talk, like do a little blurb for each podcast, just like a good little, like, I know that you kind of said a little bit of something about the two of them, at the beginning of the episode, but like, is there like anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. Go ahead and give my audience the names of those podcasts once again, so they can go ahead and follow. You better follow this fucking podcast. I swear to God, I don't have to beg you.
No, seriously. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, too, on the because you record through Anchor, right?
Yes.
Okay. Um, if you have like a little blurb yourself, go ahead and send it to me because I am putting together the commercial breaks, if you will, and that's where I'm doing. That's where I'm promoting other content creators and what they do.
I
So you're gonna
appreciate
send
it.
that. But yes, if you want insight or my insight on sex, love, relationships, go ahead and follow the most popular guy in the middle of nowhere. We have 2 seasons out right now that you can catch up on. And then we also have, for book lovers, the Page Master Book Review podcast. We have both on wherever you can find wherever you get your podcast from.
Hell yeah. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming out in these woods, or out in this city rather, in this apartment. So short notice. I literally contacted Ryan last night, and he's been such a trooper. Thank you so much. And maybe just one of these days I can have you on one of my sweet tea episodes, and maybe
Yes.
if you can find a
Oh,
spot for me on one of your podcasts, I would love to be on.
yes. Okay. What I'm focusing on another roundtable episode, which I definitely want your take on a lot of things. So I'll send you the more details on that one.
Okie doke. Well, Ryan, you have a great night, and we will talk to you later.